So, hello everybody. As always, my name is Mac Manning, and I'm with GW's Military and Veteran Services Office. And welcome again to another episode of our Veteran Speaker Series. I'm joined today by two very special guests. But before I get to them, I just want to highlight that the Veteran Speaker Series is an ongoing series regarding members of the military affiliate community and different topics associated with that demographic within George Washington University as a whole. My guest today is Bethany Masimula, excuse me, I was working on that name for a couple of times, and Chelsea Baxter, two graduate students within GW's art therapy program, but they are also both military affiliated members within the GW community as well. So first of all, Chelsea and Bethany, thank you so much for joining me today, and I really appreciate you taking the time. If you don't mind, I'd like to start with Chelsea. Would you mind giving everybody sort of a brief introduction, but also telling everyone how you are military affiliated?
Sure. So my name is Chelsea. Like you said, I'm a graduate student in the art therapy program. I got my bachelor's degree. I actually have two of them from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Um, I am military affiliated in two ways. I grew up as a Navy brat. My dad was a career Navy sailor. My whole childhood was pretty much the Navy life, and now I'm married to a Navy sailor. So I have it on the spouse experience now too.
Very cool. The world's finest Navy, as they say. So, Bethany, if you don't mind, same question.
Sure, yeah. My name is Bethany Masimula, and you were really close. It's a mouthful of a last name. And yeah, I have some military in my family as far as like grandpa in the Navy, uncle in the Air Force, but predominantly my affiliation is as a military spouse. My husband joined in 2009 and is still active duty, currently in Fort Stewart, Georgia.
So, in Bethany, I'm going to continue the next conversation with you, the next question with you, but we often talk about how a lot of times dependents and spouses of service members, sort of get disregarded when the general population thinks of the military affiliated community. But you make a lot of sacrifices being a military spouse and being connected to that, and only those who are in that community really understand what impact has being a member of this community had on you personally, and then also maybe even academically.
Sure, yeah. A lot of the impact I would say is positive, thankfully, as far as going to places I never would have gone to otherwise. Our first assignment was in Fort Riley, Kansas, which you learn Kansas is not just like it is in the Wizard of Oz. And then we were fortunate to go to Germany, which was really a treat, and it's beautiful, and we were able to travel a lot. And then most recently, Georgia, which brought us back to the East Coast, where I'm from, North Carolina. So that has been great. And then the on the negative side, even though I'm a teacher in my background, and they say it's a portable career, which is good for spouses, it was also challenging because we moved every 3 years, and so I was always in a new school or district and different grade levels and settings. So I did start to pursue some educational opportunities when we were in Kansas and was able to get a certificate in graphic design, trying to get more into an artistic career field. And then when we were in Germany, I started to look at programs for art therapy. And so that's the pro and the con, because I applied to GW because of the DC area, and we would like to be together, but we're not. We're right now what some call geo-batching, or I'm a geographical bachelor. So that's an impact, but hopefully it will not be for too much longer.
Hopefully not. And Chelsea, I think being a Navy spouse yourself, you understand that there's a lot of impact in terms of you guys kind of serve together. So can you talk a little bit about your experiences and what impact that has had being part of that community?
As a Navy spouse.
Yes.
Um, sure. It's new. I think I took a lot of what I thought it was going to be like an independent life with me. It's a lot easier to make friends when you're the new kid in school. than it is to just be like a new person in a town.
Sure.
It's not. Um, so I think the moving is something I'm used to. It's something I kind of look forward to, but it's also difficult. You kind of build that community when you go, and you learn to do it quickly. But people who necessarily aren't associated with the military don't. So it can be hard to kind of like, hey, I need to rush this friendship timeline is kind of like what's going on in your head because I've only got like this many years. Um, but so I think that's as far as like being a spouse and having community, that's been the biggest thing for me. And I'm honestly still new in integrating myself into like the Navy spouse community because
Yeah.
my example was my parents were always kind of separate from it in a way. I don't know how to really go into detail about that, but um, they kind of just made homes in the community, not necessarily in the Navy community. So we
So that
lived
kind of
with
made it work and gave you as much of a stable lifestyle as much as possible, and that's what a lot of parents do. And Bethany sort of touched onto it, but I'd like to know a little bit more. How did you end up at GW? Did you start looking at different programs? And we're going to talk a little bit more about art therapy specifically, but why did you pick George Washington University as your primary institution for Chelsea?
Sorry. Okay.
for me.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, so sorry. I thought you said Bethany. I picked George Washington. I'm trying to condense all the details. When I first graduated undergrad, I kind of haphazardly threw these applications out to graduate programs, just general ones for psychology. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought it was the appropriate next step. I got rejected, all of them. It was pretty sad. So then I was like, okay, that's not going to work. And I decided to go into like the workforce, I guess, so to speak, with mental health. And I gained a lot of really valuable experience that also was helpful because that's when we were moving, had a couple jobs. George Washington was always kind of like this program on the horizon, like the gold one, the pretty outlined destination that maybe we could get to. Um, and it is basically just the dream program for me working with trauma. PTSD is something that I'm really hoping to get towards, and it's something the program really caters towards.
Okay.
Great location too.
So, you mentioned it, and I think it really is interesting. But the reality is, when I think of art, and I mean, therapy for sure, but when I think of art, I don't think of trauma and impact and things like that. So, Bethany, if you wouldn't mind, what is art therapy? Can you kind of clarify that a little bit for me?
Yes, and I wanted to make sure I do justice to the definition. So, the American Art Therapy Association is right in Alexandria, Virginia, and we have a couple local associations and a GW student association for it as well. So it's really an integrative mental health and human services profession. So we aim to enrich individuals, families, even communities, and it involves active art making, creative processes, but also applied psychological theory and just um, things are done within a psychotherapeutic relationship. So that's why it falls under the category of therapy and art can be somewhat broad as far as like the arts, but there are different fields and professions for other types of expressive art, such as music therapy, dance therapy, there's even drama therapy. Um, so in our program, it's more the visual arts, but we do look at how to incorporate the arts in general.
Okay. And I guess this is a question for Chelsea. Can you give me a couple examples? Because my vision is like, am I just painting and then talking about my feelings, or does it get a little bit more specific than that? I'm going to trust the experts here when I ask that question. If you can kind of dumb it down for me and explain to me a little bit further what that would mean if I were to kind of want to pursue some art therapy sessions personally.
Sure. So, right off the bat, I'm gonna say it's my first semester, so definitely not an expert, still learning. But from what I've seen, I definitely can share. This is gonna be so cookie cutter, but it's just true. I think every therapeutic journey is going to be specific and unique to each person. Generally, I think what you're going to see is art making presented, with purpose. So there's going to be specific materials chosen, maybe specific directives. A directive is kind of like a prompt, um, and I think your art therapist would work with you on kind of walking alongside of you, meeting you where you're at, and finding out what you really need or not hoping to get from therapy, and then kind of catering the sessions to that.
Sure. And you know what? I like what you said, it kind of getting what you want out of the therapy, or having the therapist kind of work to meet a goal. Bethany, in our original conversations about art therapy in general, we came to the conversation of some of the stigmas. I think it's very obvious that the military community in general can be very reserved, and they don't necessarily want to seek help. And it's not always about help. Sometimes it's just preventative maintenance and taking care of your physical well-being and your mental well-being. And that's something that Military Veteran Services Office at GW has worked very hard. Can you talk a little bit about some of the stigmas that are associated with art therapy, especially as it pertains to the military community?
Sure. Was that directed to me? Sorry.
Yes. And for the record,
Okay,
everybody,
thanks.
this is the first time we've ever done multiple interviews in a WebEx series. So we're trying to set, luckily, Bethany and Chelsea are being very amenable to me. So, but that question is specifically directed to you, Bethany.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it comes with a lovely virtual territory. So, yeah, so the stigmas are very real as far as mental health, like you said, needing help or being perceived as needing help or being weak and things like that. Whereas I really appreciate how you mentioned the preventative wellness, and that is a huge piece of this. And, I think the military is doing a good job about talking about things like resiliency and, other like maybe methods of self-care, even meditation, talking about emotional intelligence and things like that. But art therapy is, I think, unique in the sense that it offers a non-verbal way of expression and of processing things, um, that I think can appeal to the military community, just from my experience. Certain things, especially if it does involve trauma, can be difficult to communicate verbally or even in writing, although that can be another method. But when you start to work with certain materials, like Chelsea mentioned, there are, studies and some theories about what materials trigger what parts of the brain. And so it can be done in a very, intentional way, depending on, like you said, what you might want to work on. And as far as the stigma, art therapy, I think, is also appealing because it can just be like a fun, relaxing, stress relieving way to be creative, to learn a creative skill, maybe something you haven't tried before. So it doesn't mean you have to come in with, like, master's level artistic skills or anything like that. Um, and I think one of the things I wanted to mention, talking about the preventative side, is what we call cumulative stress. And, there are certain types of stress that are, as you know, good for us, but some, if they just keep building up and building up, that's what can lead to things like PTSD. So if it can be addressed in a more preventative way, it can even help prevent some of those problems down the line.
Yeah. When we talk about, sort of what are some of the possible benefits, I mean, if you're looking at taking care of yourself, if I'm in the military, there's performing your job at a high level function, making sure that you have everything taken care of, meaning, you're ready, deploy, you're healthy, so your teeth are taken care of, your medical stuff is all taken care of, and then also your physical fitness. So those are the three primary functions. And when you look at the first two are pretty straightforward, but the third one, physical fitness, is really clear. It's like you can lift weights, but then you should also do cardio, and then you should also do stretching and flexibility. When you look at your mental health, that's something they don't typically talk about, but it's immensely important. And the focus should also be having a well-rounded mental health regimen, whether that be yoga, whether that be meditation, whether that be, talking to your significant other the other day. I know my spouse, she sort of relies on that with me, because I get to work from home now, which is really nice, but she comes home, has a very long, stressful day. So it is a really important part of this. And that's where different levels, different ways to work your mind and to focus on your stress levels. Art therapy definitely comes into play. If you don't mind, so we talked a little bit initially, and GW actually has a very large program within the art therapy, and they offer a lot of different resources. Can you talk a little bit, if I'm a military affiliate student, or just anyone in general that wants to learn more about art therapy, but also art therapy in George Washington University, where would you recommend they kind of start looking? Bethany, if you don't mind answering that, and then I'll go to Chelsea.
Okay,
Sure.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah. No, and thank you again for having us and helping bring attention to the options out there. So there is a clinic in the building in Alexandria, but it is not currently open because of COVID and the pandemic. But one of the options, which I know you and I have talked briefly about, that we can explore for, the spring and in the future, is I'm an intern with the Nashman Center for Civic Engagement, and through them we are able to offer workshops on things just like stress relief and resiliency or empowerment. And so that is a place. If you check out their website, it should be listed there, or we can give you our contact information as far as workshops that are available virtually. And I would love to plan some more specifically geared towards the military community in the spring. And as things start to open back up, maybe even have some things on site there at the center on campus. But there's other things in the community, which is great to have Chelsea here so she can tell you about some other things off campus too.
Great. So
Did you
Chelsea,
want? Yeah. Okay. So I'm an intern at Workhouse Art Center in Lorton, Virginia, kind of the Northern Virginia area. And specifically, I work for the Workhouse Military in the Arts Initiative. My supervisor and I work to kind of create groups, workshops, different kinds of things for individuals who are military affiliated. Specifically, every Saturday from 12 to 3, there's a veterans open studio where you come and you just kind of create whatever you're feeling. Sometimes there's a prompt, sometimes we've got guest artists teaching a skill, but sometimes it's just make what you feel. Last weekend we did pour painting and it was a huge success. People loved it. And the only caveat to it right now is because of COVID, you have to sign up and there's a cap on how many people can come. But other than that, it's just open to veterans, and I think it's a great resource. Workhouse in general is also a really great resource for arts engagement. While the whole center isn't necessarily free for veterans, they have subsidies, so you can take classes for lower prices and that kind of thing with your affiliation.
So one of the things that's really great about George Washington University is that, they sort of give me as the program manager a lot of free range to do what I want. So with myself and then my supervisor, Dr. Andy Sun, who directs the office, one of our main focuses has been mindfulness and then wellness. And that's why we've seen things like the Swole-Mate fitness competition. We've done yoga outside, and we've done mindfulness exercise, a whole bunch of different things that we're pretty proud of and pretty excited to have in terms of our programming. And then COVID sort of threw a strike right down the middle in terms of our programming efforts. But we're very encouraged that working with the Division of Student Affairs, we're going to be bringing a lot of those efforts back. We are very limited in the amount of students that are coming back for the spring. But we do plan to work with, and once we found out that there was military affiliated members within the graduate school for art therapy, that just clicked right away. So that would be something that between you, Chelsea, and Bethany, I hope to bring on and do some programming specifically with you. And also maybe if that's something that's a requirement of your graduation, I hope I can kill two birds with one stone on that one. But we're really appreciative. It definitely helps the community and breaking down some of those stigmas of, the rough and tough military that, most of the community doesn't necessarily identify with that, but that's sort of what everyone sort of assumes. It really is great to kind of break those stigmas down and take advantage of something that can really help you in a variety of different ways. But As always, thank you so much to the both of you for joining me for the Veteran Speaker Series. This was another great episode. When we post this video, we are going to be including some information that Chelsea and Bethany are willing to share with us regarding their contact information, as well as the information about the resources that they provided. If you'd like to know more about the Veteran Speaker Series, feel free to go to military.gwu.edu, as well as follow at GW Veterans on Instagram, where we'll be posting this, or follow GW Veterans on YouTube. As always, thank you very much. Mac Manning signing out.